Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. There's Cody. It's Thursday, January 9th, 2025. I'm your host, George Kurth. Cody, besides struggling a little bit on the intro there, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Sorry about the technical difficulties. My mouse stopped working right as I hit go live, so I couldn't scroll and hit any buttons. But yeah, doing good. And we're going to talk football and the playoffs and how the regular season ended and get ready for wild card weekend. And everyone wants to talk about Detroit and how they're doing. But I just want to give a shout out to the Detroit Pistons, the other team in Detroit. Undefeated in 2025 on a 5-game win streak, 1 game over 500. Living on cloud right now living on cloud 9 right now as a Detroit Pistons fan. 1 game over 500.
1 game over 500, 5-game winning streak. Is that almost as many wins as they had all of last season?
Yep. They were 4-28 at one point last year.
That's amazing. What a turnaround. Congrats to the Detroit Pistons.
But yeah, all right, that's sometimes we're a college football podcast. I guess sometimes we can be an NBA podcast, but let's get to that meat of this actual show and talk football, that sport that we love.
Yes, let's do that. We make sure beforehand, follow us at the Couch GMs, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok to find everything you have on the show and more. You can also join us live Mondays and Thursdays at 6:30 East time. And drop comments or hit us in the DMs if you have any questions, comments, whatever it is. But Cody, plenty to talk about heading into Wild Card Weekend. Why don't we sit back, relax, and chat? I like the tri-colored background as a change, by the way. That's nice.
I guess I missed the World Cup that much.
I miss it too. I mean, you don't actually miss fantasy football yet. I don't think you normally have to go through a little bit of a period of withdrawal.
I'm still grieving from 4 championships over the last 2 years and 0 championship wins.
That is a struggle, but that is the heart of fantasy football. Serious note, actually, before we move into football talk, thoughts and prayers out to those affected by the fires in California right now. It's a scary situation when you have something like this happening in such a densely populated area, but hoping everyone is out of there safe and everything's under control soon.
Yeah, and I, like you said, thoughts and prayers to all the people out fighting them. But the one thing to note, though, is that there is potential that the Vikings and Rams game could be relocated to Arizona if they see the fires are a threat to the game. I know the Lakers game tonight that we're recording it has been postponed because of the fires. So looks like they're trying to take care of the city. And it's always important to remember that although we love this game, it is just a game.
Yes, definitely just a game. It's nice that there's a contingency plan to get it away and safe and let everyone have room to work if they need it. And that game is Monday night, so a little bit of time here to hopefully have things under control by then. We hope they do. So we'll keep an eye out on how that works, and we are going to do a lot more breaking down that game on our Monday show, but we'll mention it a little bit here tonight. Moving on to head coaches. We thought there was 5 head coach openings in the NFL. We now find out there is 6, as a little bit delayed, but the Las Vegas Raiders fired Antonio Pierce from his job after 1 and a little bit seasons.
Yeah, it's a tough loss. Like, it was definitely a situation where, like, you could tell the players liked Antonio Pierce. They fought hard the last month of the season. Won a couple games down the stretch, but they decided to clean house. They took a couple days to really think about it, which almost in a way it's like, yeah, why don't you give it a day or two to, like, what did you miss out on? Maybe being able to schedule an interview on Friday, like, not much. They took time, thought about it, and decided to clean house. First, they fired Antonio Pierce. Next day, they're like, we're going for a full clean house again, firing their GM as well. So the Raiders get into the, head coaching cycle. They didn't miss out too much from this. And honestly, seems like it could be a potential job or a good job, one of the better ones that are open right now.
Depends on, I think, their quarterback situation. They were kind of clearing house a little bit of players, obviously moving Devontae Adams and such. But I mean, there's some jobs out there in organizations we would consider poorly run that I would be even less excited to see somebody go to. So it's definitely not the worst job out there.
For sure. So I want to put you on the spot
Okay.
because I just thought about this, and we like to have fun and like to rank things and debate things. So there's 6 openings right now: Bears, Saints, Jets, Patriots, Raiders, Jaguars. Those are the
Okay.
6 that are opening. Rank them 1 to 6, 1 being the most desirable, 6 being the least desirable. One more time for those listening at home and want to do that. That is the Bears, Saints, Jets, Raiders, Patriots, and Jags.
Okay. I actually typed them down just so I have a visual. I'm a visual learner here. Patriots job, I think, is probably my favorite of the bunch. You already have a quarterback. Some would argue after a 1 week sample size, 2 quarterbacks in the building that are competent. And you still have a high draft pick to go out there and try to fill some other holes. You have an ownership group that has proven a winning culture in the past. So you obviously hope that you can jump in there and build back up another dynasty. Patriots my favorite. So then we got after that. This is where it gets tough. The Raiders or Jags are probably 2-3 to me. Jags, obviously, because you have Trevor Lawrence again, quarterback in place. If you have a coach who thinks they can open up the toolbox and bring his play out, that's big. The Raiders, I mean, still have a high draft pick, and you hope that they can, get some stuff together. After that, I'm going with the Saints out of the bottom 3 as number 4 because they're probably the better run of the organizations, but they are in major cap trouble, aging, underperforming quarterback. So like there's problems, but when it comes to like being a decent run organization, the Saints are in better shape than the other 2. And then I'm going to go with Jets little bit. Jets and Bears are a toss up. I think a coach going in to the Jets, they have a young defense, a couple of young pieces on offense that are good. They just need to find their quarterback, and that means an offensive-minded coach I could see going in there trying to find somebody that he handpicks. And then the Bears, just because they find ways to dig themselves in holes over and over and over again. So I just have very little faith in the Bears.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting thing. So for me, I would rank them. I go back and forth between the Patriots and the Jaguars for my 1-2. I would say Patriots first, Jaguars second, just because you have to work with Trent Baalke. But it's the only job opening with an established quarterback that that. Obviously, Drake May seems established. Caleb Williams seems established. But Trevor Lawrence is established and still has room to improve. So I'd probably go Patriots, Jags. Then I would follow that with the next pairing would be Bears and Raiders.
Okay.
I would probably go Bears 3 just because of Caleb. And, the Raiders have their chance to do whatever they want this offseason. But to your point, the same thing I don't really love the Jags is you're getting hold with a GM. The Bears, they kept their GM as well, where the Raiders, it's a clean slate. You can come in together with a guy, and grow it up. So I think they're like 3A, 3B, but 3-4. And then Jets, Saints are at the bottom. I would go Jets 5, even though Woody Johnson seems to, care more about Madden, which I did find it funny that they're interviewing everybody and their brother for their GM job. And I heard someone make a joke that it's just the interview process is you play a connected franchise against his kids, and they're like the Bills and the Patriots, and it's how fast you can turn the Jets around to win the division or win a Super Bowl. That's how
I would absolutely love if that was even any bit true.
it's definitely not, but that'd be a lot of fun. And then the Saints would be last for me just because of their cap situation. They're kind of like in a bridge year with Derek Carr. That's a whole mess there. But wanted to throw that on you real quick. What are your rankings? I did think it was funny. I did see online that the Raiders have some of the best odds to get Aaron Rodgers next year.
Oh
And
my
I was
god.
like, does that mean Devontae Adams comes back to Las Vegas? Like, how does that work?
I
He probably
feel like
still
that might be a relationship that can't be healed at the same time. Maybe he wants to move back into his house with a Taco Bell. So
yeah, it could be up to the Taco Bell. And then we mentioned 6 head coaching options, but there could be a 7th. We still don't know. Although the Dallas Cowboys denied the Bears' request to interview Mike McCarthy, who they have till January 14th to make an extension before he becomes a quote unquote coaching free agent. Um, you would think by denying this interview, it sounds like McCarthy is staying. I know they're talking, but I don't think it guarantees it. So my question is, if for you, and you can give any other thoughts you want to on this, but the question, if they decide in a couple days, they're like, hey, it's not going to work out, we're going to part separate ways. Do you think it's a disservice for them or McCarthy for not just pulling the Band-Aid right at the end of the season?
I think it's a disservice for both. One, it's going to put the Cowboys behind the 8 ball when looking for a head coaching candidate. A lot of these teams have already started to go through head coaching interviews. You might even have 1 or 2 or 3 jobs filled by the time that time comes up. It's also a disservice to McCarthy because the Bears might be a decent fit for him. And if you now basically denied him the opportunity to go there until the 14th, there's a chance the Bears take that job. He doesn't even get a head coaching interview otherwise. There was not any other teams that actually requested interviews for him. Doesn't mean there's not interest elsewhere, because people might be waiting to see for that date, but you don't know that. And I mean, I can say all the bad things that I want about Jerry Jones, but I have this feeling that like he wouldn't be the guy where if he considers Mike McCarthy someone he's close to, he wouldn't decline him the chance to go interview for that job to give him a chance to do something else in the NFL if he had any doubts that he was coming back.
So
So
you think it's a
I'm
lock if
thinking that
McCarthy's
this
back?
means he's staying.
Okay. And they're just working out the contract,
Yes,
basically.
that's what I'm thinking. And if I'm wrong and then he loses the Bears job and doesn't get a head coaching job, that looks horrible on Jerry Jones.
Yeah. I think it'll, like, the optics will look bad, but at the end of the day, like, the 14th is what, next Tuesday?
Yes.
So, like, how many jobs are going to be filled over the weekend? I don't know. Like, they'll be behind the 8 ball because a lot of people are doing virtual interviews today, yesterday. I mean, the only job that might be
Tomorrow.
filled is Mike Vrabel to the Patriots whenever that does happen.
I think that interview happened today,
It did
Thursday,
happen
if I'm not
today.
mistaken. Yeah.
So, like, he could still get in the game, but I think it's trending that he is going to stay, and it's just a matter of, like, is there a buyout to his contract after next year, or the logistical side of the business?
Definitely. So we'll keep you updated with all of the head coaching openings as we go. Moving on to a story we talked about on Monday, Tyreek Hill saying he's out of Miami. He is now on better terms with the Dolphins after some meetings with upper management on the team. But Cody, you found a very interesting tidbit on the internet.
Yeah, so his agent Drew Rosenhaus was on Pat McAfee today. They were down in Miami getting ready for the Orange Bowl, which kicks off in just under an hour, as Penn State hosts or doesn't host. They verse Notre Dame for a chance to go to the college football championship. So that should be a great game that we are going to try to get everyone out of here in time to go see for themselves. But back to Tyreek Hill, his agent was on there, and he said he broke his wrist during training camp practice scrimmage with the Commanders. And I'm like, wait a second. Why did we not hear about that till so late in the season? And just, I mean, he was also talking about how there's potential, like, his wrist will never fully recover because they wanted him to get surgery, and he was like, no, I'm a team guy. And I think some of this might be, trying to, hey, he's there for the team because of the situation. But he was like, he wanted to be there. He thought it was this year. And honestly, if that is the case, you could see why he was so frustrated after not even making the playoffs. A guy that, risked, no pun intended, everything to play. But it's just the whole, the NFL tries to be so transparent with these injuries. 101 in pretty much every fantasy draft was CMC this year.
Yep.
And a week before the season, it was like, oh, he's not practicing yet. He's still his Achilles are weak, but he's questionable also game time, ends up on IR, misses 8 weeks. Tyreek Hill has a broken wrist he has to play through. We don't find out about that until, middle of the season. He
Yeah, it
was
was like week
102,
8 to 10
103.
or something.
And I think that would just be an interesting, like, hindsight's always 2020, right? Like, if you would have known what you've known, you would take players differently. But, like, as you prepare for the fantasy football season, like, how far does a broken wrist that Tyreek Hill is playing for him drop him? Does it drop him completely out of the first round? And it's hard to tell hindsight because we know how bad a season was.
Yeah.
But I think it at least drops him to, like, behind Justin Jefferson and them.
Oh, yeah, I would think you would at least drop him behind Jefferson Chase into that second tier of wide receivers. He'd be drafted near, like, I would say where Puka Nacua was, and Puka ended up getting hurt at the beginning of the season too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's just interesting that, like, and I wonder if we'll see any fallout from this interview, if the Dolphins look into anything like that, or the league looks into the Dolphins,
Yeah.
or
That's what
maybe
I
we
was thinking originally when you said that is technically could they if he didn't miss practice, I don't know if they have to report it, but like there is never anything out there that there was ever a wrist injury.
I'm gonna just look real quick while we're doing this Dolphins week 1 injury report to see if Tyreek Hill was even on it with the wrist.
Yeah, I don't remember anyone ever saying anything about a wrist with Tyreek Hill. And the other thing that concerns me while you're looking is that they said like it might never be right again. And we're already looking at the fact that like Tyreek Hill a few years ago said he was playing out this contract and then he was going to retire. I believe, Cody, you said that that was the end of this coming season. And we were thinking like, oh, maybe he gets moved to another team and then stays longer. That seems becoming more and more unlikely. Number one, if he stays with the Dolphins, and number two, if he finds out the wrist isn't the same this year as it has been, there's not really as much incentive for him to keep going.
Yeah, I think it'll be something to pay close attention to as we move through the offseason and into next year's fantasy football drafts. And for clarity, he was not on the week 1 injury report. I'm quickly trying to see what week he showed up on the injury report with his wrist.
I believe it was like week 7, 8, 9, something like that. It was very far into the season. I believe we were already almost through the Tua absence at that point, even. And we were wondering,
Week
we were
10.
thinking a lot of it was with, Tyreek Hill, being affected by Tua, but there was more to it.
So week 9, he was on the injury report designated with wrist and foot. Then in week 10 is when he was back on the injury report designated as wrist.
Not until week 9, someone who had this injury happen in training camp. Absolutely crazy that picks 1 and 2 in fantasy had something going on, and we did not know.
Yeah, it's a crazy game out there. But I think that's most of our news. You want to start talking about this wild card weekend?
I'm glad you said it that way. Yes, sir.
I don't have a bumper.
All right, cool. We're going to move in here, and I'm going to lead it off with an oddball fact that I saw come across from Adam Schefter on X today. So per Paul Hembo, underdogs are 69 and 105 all time on wild card weekend. That averages 1.5 upsets per season. At least one underdog has won a wild card round in 40 of 46 seasons dating back to the 1970s. So when you're making your picks for wild card weekend, 1.5 is the target upset number.
Target upset number. Okay. 1.5. And I know we're going to talk about all these games, but I'm looking at the lines that we have as of right now. Yeah, if I'm going based on their point, it's be hard to pick them out. Maybe we'll try to pick out which 1 or 2 upsets there'll be as we go through this. And
1 or
because
2
it's
upsets. Yep. That's what we're
and I'm
looking for.
assuming these are upsets, not seeding, like against
No, I believe it would be lines.
because
That was
like
not specified in the post, but from hearing underdogs, I would assume lines.
that's how I interpret it. But so like the first game is Chargers at Texans. Technically, the Texans are the 4 seed, the home team. The Chargers are the road team, the 5 seed. but the Texans would be the underdogs going into that game.
Texans would be the underdogs as they are given 3 points and the over-under is at 42.5. We can talk a little bit more betting, or at least betting lines, as we talk about less games at one time. As we go through this, do you want to make your picks on these games as we go? And then when we bring up our full playoff brackets at the end, it'll just show that and then continue?
No, let's save all our picks at the end.
All right. All our picks at the end. So stay tuned as we get towards the end of the show. We're going to be revealing our entire playoff brackets. We won't say our winners as we go through games. 4:30 Saturday, as you said, Chargers, Texans. Chargers dealing with injuries still. Quentin Johnston, questionable for this game, and J.K. Dobbins, who's been dealing with his injuries since he's come off of IR. So Texans are the home team, but I do think I like the fact that the Chargers are favored in this game.
Yeah, and I'm not surprised. They've been playing good as of late. The Texans have been struggling, and the thing that's going to stick out to me, can the Texans turn it on? Can they play better, more consistently? Can they come out and shock us like they did against the Cleveland Browns last year in that first game, where it was like, whoa, what team are we watching right now? Can that happen this week? Because John Harbaugh, right? Jim? Which one is it? Jim. Jim's a winner. He knows how to win. I know Dobbins is banged up. He's going to want to play time possession, run the clock, and then hit big plays with Justin Herbert off play action. So can the Texans keep up? There's a lot to see in this game. I do think it is a pretty good game to kick off the slate, though.
It is. Normally these Texans games we almost talk about as like throwaway games just because of how they've been, but the Texans aren't as exciting as they were last year. Like, I think that's what I'm looking at coming into this. Like, you're talking about how the Texans have surprised us with the upset of the Browns last year, but now that they're down Tank Dell and they're down Stephon Diggs and they've looked like they've been kind of stuck in the mud on offense for the last 2 months plus, like they almost feel like a one-trick pony where it's like if they get Joe Mixon going, their offense moves. If they don't get Joe Mixon going, good luck. Like Nico Collins hasn't been as much of a difference maker post-injury as he was pre-injury.
Yeah, that's a very good point. CJ Stroud's had a little bit of a sophomore slump. It's not the end of the world for him. Doesn't mean he's not going to get back to where he was at the end of last year, but he's had a little bit of a sophomore slump. The Texans as a whole have, regressed. They didn't quite live up to expectations. This Chargers team, they don't score a lot of points. Over under 42.5. I think I'm leaning towards the under on that one, but I'll save my pick for the end.
Also leaning towards the under with the Chargers being the time control team. And I will say they are not the most talented roster, but when it comes to like how well coached that team is, at potentially top 3. Just Jim has them playing good football for the roster he has there.
Yeah, and I think they're kind of underrated as a roster. Like they have a pretty decent offensive line, like pieces. They have some, they're not a complete unit like the Lions or the Eagles. They don't have a quote unquote star wide receiver, but Ladd McConkey has come on as of late. Josh Palmer has been serviceable. Quentin Johnston's a big play guy, 50-50, but if he's going to catch it, but he's a big play guy. J.K. Dobbins resurgent.
Catch it's a good way to put it.
His resurgence has been good. The defense is top 5. It was at one point. It might be down to top 10 now unit in the league, but like Khalil Mack is still on that team. Joey Bosa is still on that team. Some good linebacker plays. Derwin James, like they have star players and a bunch of young guys. So this Chargers team could be a sneaky team throughout the whole playoffs without spoiling anything.
They could be. That's for sure. We'll save our picks for later. Moving on to the second game on Saturday, 8:00. Steelers at Ravens. Third matchup of the year. Those two teams split in the regular season. Over-under on this game is slightly higher at 43.5, and Pittsburgh is 9.5-point underdogs. Now, I think there's no reason to not say Baltimore's favored here, but 9.5 points is steep.
No, it's definitely steep for a playoff game. I was at first surprised by the over-under being 43.5, but then I figured they're just giving the Ravens 30 points. And that's kind of where we got the line for it. This Steelers defense is not they're on a 4-game losing streak. They're, struggling. Their defense has been giving up a lot of passing yards over the last, obviously they played Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, hell, Lamar Jackson was
Lamar
in
Jackson.
the
Yeah.
like so they've played elite talent, but their defense has struggled. Their offense can't get it going. There's a disconnect between Pickens and Russell Wilson. The running game has been okay, but they get down because their defense is scoring up and they have to fade away from it. The only saving grace, it's the third time, and typically, I say typically because the last game wasn't that close. Typically, these two teams play closer. So I do kind of like Pittsburgh and the points in this one just because it is a playoff game. But I don't.
You're not
have a
picking
hard
your
time. Yeah, I'm not picking my winner, but I have a hard time seeing the Ravens not making it to the divisional round.
Yes. So I have a hypothetical for you that I've heard kind of floating around the interwebs. We talk about how they're on a 4-game losing streak being the Steelers. And we talk about how Russell Wilson's come back down to earth after starting off, pretty good. And then it's been like, now he almost looks like he's going back to Broncos Russ. If you were Mike Tomlin, would you be crazy enough to start Justin Fields?
I legit had this conversation with a coworker of mine this week. I was like, do you come out and surprise them with Justin Fields? Because your game plan would have to be completely different, and it could give you an edge. How quick can they adapt? And, adapting is one of the things that the Ravens have done so well. Their defense was terrible coming into their bye, and since their bye week, they're like the best defense in the league. It's crazy how they flipped in a short amount of time. But yeah, I think it's on the table. I mean, Russ hasn't done anything to play for him, and basically me and my coworker decided we don't think that Russ will actually get benched for Justin Fields. But I do think there could be more and more packages for him. It's not just we need a 3rd and 1 conversion. We're going to come run read option with Fields and Najee Harris. Like they can get him going because don't forget when Fields was starting, he was winning.
Yeah, they were 4-0 or 4-1. I think it was. My bad.
But they were winning with Fields, and they're not committed to Russell Wilson after next year. Like he's a free agent at the end of this year. So I guess the only thing that if you were to bench him, I honestly think it could be it would make the game more interesting.
Oh yeah, it definitely would.
Like this game right now, I'm like, oh, do I have plans at 8:00? Because I'd probably rather be doing something than watching playoff football. And how often do you think of that?
You don't, even though and especially in a divisional game, like you don't really expect it to be close, and like you're saying, but I will say the first game where the Steelers did beat the Ravens, it was Russell Wilson starting, but you saw a lot of sub packages for Justin Fields, and the Ravens struggled to stop that read option running with the quarterback kind of play. Second game, maybe it's because the Ravens got out to such a big lead, but you didn't see that at all of the Steelers. So I'm interested to see if they try to go back to a game plan that got them in a game close a couple months ago.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what they want to do with a guy like Justin Fields. And if he can get on there. And I know he was banged up a little bit, but he is not on the injury report either. I mean, both teams are fairly healthy for this game, except Zay Flowers of the Baltimore Ravens is going to miss time. But does sound like if the Ravens do advance the divisional, he has a chance to go then.
Yep, and that's the scare of playing your players in Week 18. But they were still playing for the division, so it's tough to come up. Tough to say if they should have done it or not. Sunday slate then?
Sunday slate.
1:00, 3 games on the Sunday slate. 1:00 is Broncos at Bills. Over under in this game, 46.5, and Denver are 8.5 point underdogs. Starting with Buffalo this time because Amari Cooper was not with the team last week. He returned. He was dealing with a personal matter. Everything seems good to go on that side. And this will be the first time in a while that I think we're going to see a full-strength Bills wide receiver room. Like they were missing Keon Coleman for a while. When they got Amari Cooper, he played 1 week, and then he was out with injury for a couple of weeks. But full-strength pass catchers for Josh Allen going to the playoffs.
Yeah, and the Broncos' strength is in their secondary on defense. So how will these players match up? Uh, do you believe in Bo Nix? I heard someone say Bo leave, and I thought it was kind of funny, so I just repeated it. George didn't catch it at first. That's
I
why I
did
think it's an
not
inside
catch
joke.
it at first.
He's been playing well as of late. I think this could be a pretty good game. I am worried about the Broncos potentially starting slow because it is a West Coast team coming east at 1:00. With that
Yeah, they
said, the
kind of got the
Bills
short end of the straw, the short straw there when you consider there's only 1 o'clock game the entire weekend.
are, coming off a week of rest. So will they start slow? I think whichever team gets out to a lead will. The Bills have a chance to come back, but I think if the Bills jump out to a lead, I have a hard time seeing the Broncos come
Mhm.
back. Is where I'm getting at.
Agreed there. Now, I think Bo Nix isn't their problem. I just think there's a couple of other issues with the Broncos. Like, even if they have a lead, they're not a team that's been consistent enough running the ball to like be able to be like, oh, they're going to salt away this game. Their defense, their secondary has been the best part of their defense, the best part of their team. But recently, when they've played elite offenses, they've still been exposed. I mean, Joe Burrow, when you consider how rough that season was for them, but he was still playing on another level. But they torched the Broncos. And that's not the only situation we've seen that happen in the last month. So worried about there's cracks forming in that secondary, but you still have to think that they match up pretty well with the Bills receivers.
Yeah, and well, it's also in Buffalo, so we'll have to see if weather plays into a factor. As of right now, there's no snow predicted for Sunday. There is some a little bit for Saturday, but it shouldn't be too much that ends up the Buffalo game getting postponed for a second year in a row.
But it's going to be cold, but I guess the Broncos are a cold weather outdoor team too, so
Yeah, it'd be right around freezing, so it shouldn't be. It's not like last year in Arrowhead or anything like that.
truth. It is not that bad. 4:00, 4:30 to be specific. Packers at Eagles.
You want to go to the game?
I'm just looking at it. I mean, sure.
Heck, it's gonna be 39 degrees on Sunday.
That's
Like
warm for this
that's
time of year around here.
mostly sunny. Only 4% chance of precipitation.
We'll go out there with our shirts off and be those people.
Do our Jason Kelsey impressions.
Yeah.
But no, obviously this game is the battle between the two Couch GMs host. Playoffs. One of us are going to be an unhappy camper on Monday. The other one is going to be ecstatic. But this honestly, I think we all talked about it even on our group chat with the Tylers.
Yeah.
This is probably the game of the week.
Mhm.
We think. I know it's a 2-7 matchup. I know the Packers have looked bad over the last couple weeks. The Eagles haven't looked great. Jalen Hurts hasn't played in almost a month, although he is trending towards playing. Love left last week, but he is trending towards playing. AJ Brown isn't practicing, but they expect him to play. So basically, everybody's going to be questionable on the injury report, but then everybody's going to play. That's kind of how I see this game going. And it should be a lot of fun, a rematch of the game in Brazil. And for one of us, we started the season and finished the season against each other. So it should be a lot of fun.
Yes. The game in Brazil, obviously, a lot of different factors when you're playing first game of the season in a foreign country and all that, but it was a great game. We hope that this one is as good. Eagles getting 4.5 points in this one. 4.5 point underdogs are Green Bay, and 45.5 the over under. When it comes to the injuries, I just want to mention, so Hurts, I don't think there's any doubts. He might not even be on the final injury report. Seems like he's going to clear protocol and be fine. Love, like you said, should be questionable, but go. AJ Brown's the interesting one to me because they've been resting him a lot. He's been on the injury report with a knee for a bit here, but he had a really weird practice trend where he actually left practice yesterday after only 10 minutes and then hasn't practiced since. So normally you don't have somebody come into practice when they're limited, leave it, and then miss the next day, and it looks good. So like I'm concerned that there was a re-aggravation of something that happened yesterday.
I think there was a re-aggravation for sure. He's not going to practice on Friday. He's going to be listed as questionable, and then he's going to play. AJ
And
Brown's
we'll
gonna,
just see how much he can go.
yeah, whether he's out there for a decoy, if he's on a snap count, he's going to play. And he's the kind of guy that can not practice all week, gut it out for 3.5 hours, throw up 10 touches, 10 catches, 150 yards, and 2 tutties. Like he's capable of that on a bad knee. It's not going to be ideal, but he's capable of that either way. Jalen Hurts went to a full participant on Thursday. So he's progressing through protocol. I believe he has one more step. As long as he is symptom free come tomorrow, then he would be good and clear.
Yep.
And then Love went from limited to full on Thursday as well. So seems like he will be probably questionable because they're going to play that game.
They're gonna play that game.
But yeah, I think it should be a great game. Interesting note for this one. It started out as Eagle or Packers plus 3.5, and it's gone up a point. I don't know if that's the Jalen Hurts effect or
Maybe it was Jalen Hurts. I mean, maybe they were just playing it safe on if he might play or not. But I think there was very little doubt he would play most of the week.
yeah. So I'm actually surprised it didn't go the other way when they thought like Love might miss, and then
Yeah,
but
that's what
we're
I'm
gaining
thinking.
a point. So if you got the Packers at 3.5, get them now at 4.5.
Yeah, seriously. But anyway, we'll talk more when we have our picks in a bit. Low key, I was like upset when they put this game at 8 o'clock, and then when I looked closer, this might be a very good game. Sunday, 8 o'clock, Commanders at Buccaneers. Over under 50.5, Washington 3-point underdogs. Scorching hot Buccaneers team. Young has been very lucky, but up and coming Commanders team. What's going to give?
No, at first I was like, really, this is the game? But again, I was talking to a coworker of mine. This is what I said about this one, as I'll repeat it here. This game, you tell me either team wins 45-42, I'd believe you.
Yeah.
You tell me either team wins 45-10, I'd believe you.
Yeah.
Like they have this. Do they both show up? Does only one show up? Whatnot? And I was having this debate too with that same coworker, and I'll again share it here and let you chime in too. I was talking about like I don't know if Baker is the elite of the elite, the top end quarterback. Like he probably squeaks into top 10, maybe top 12. I'd have to really sit down and think about all the quarterbacks and break it down. But in terms of like watchability and just like it looks like he's having a great time. Like he has to be like 1B to Josh Allen.
Yeah. Just because of the fire and the way he can go out there and make plays. Like he's not, I mean, obviously not the flashiest quarterback, but there's a personality there that's just someone you want to watch. It's like Jameis Winston.
Yeah, that's Bucks quarterbacks. I don't know
Bucks
what's down in the
quarterbacks,
modern
man.
Tampa Bay, but yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on. And I think Jaden Daniels has been, fun to watch, and them coming back against the Eagles. You don't want to talk about that one. The game against the Falcons, like they've had some big moments. That team is young and ascending, and this should be a great way to cap off the weekend slate of games.
I agree. And this Commanders team with Jaden Daniels reminds me a lot of the rookie year for RG3 when they went into the playoffs. Had a great first round game that unfortunately ended with RG3 getting hurt. Obviously, not hoping for that on Jaden Daniels. I want to see him have a long, exciting career because it's going to be entertaining if he keeps ascending the way he is. But that this is the first time that they've seen excitement since then. And that was a fun team to watch. And just because this team's never dead, they're always out there scrapping. They come back. They have ridiculous Hail Marys. So many things happen. The long touchdown against the Cowboys that then ended up with a onside kick return for touchdown. Like, there's never been a dull moment in this season for the Commanders.
Yeah, like I know the WWE is big because they kicked off on Netflix this week. But this feels like a WWE match. Like just it's pure entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Is it skill? Is it rigged? Who knows? But just pure entertainment between these two teams.
when you're not a fan of either of these teams and I guess the Commanders are a rival of the Eagles, but it's kind of tough because they've been bad for so long. Like, there's not any like super big, like, I want to root against this person. Like, it's one of those games where it's like, I don't care who wins, but it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, I think that is a good way to put it.
One more game, Monday Night Football, Vikings at Rams. Now, first off, I guess before we jump into the game, it's still dumb that they have Monday Night Football in the playoffs, right?
I don't hate it, but I don't love it.
I just think it really affects teams going forward.
It does. What I do like though is they tend to put I think every year that they've done it, it's been a 4-5 matchup. Which in all likelihood, like, I think it's nice when it works. Let's not talk about the matchups. It's nice when it works out that the winner of that matchup has to play the 2 seed. I like it in that because when that works out, you almost get a perk for you don't get the bye like the 1 seed anymore, but you get a perk. You get a rest advantage. I mean, if there's actually no NFC games on, and part of that is probably but like if they ever did it where you went Saturday to Sunday and the other team went Monday to Sunday, you'd have a 2-day rest advantage over that team. So yeah, it does stink in a way, and like I think that's why it was so crucial for the Lions to get that game, and the same reason why it was crucial for the Vikings. Like, you just played, quote unquote, your game of the year. The Lions looked a lot better than the Vikings did. Now you have to go on the road out west to the Rams, who have Matt Stafford, Sean McVay, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, all these pieces that obviously their offense has struggled. They've scored less than 20 points in the last month of the season in each game. But now it's playoff time, and that's a veteran quarterback with a veteran coach who's been there, done that, where the Vikings have an up-and-coming head coach, a resurgent Sam Darnold, but this is the playoffs. It's a little bit different. Justin Jefferson and the Vikings wide receivers were not happy with how handsy the Lions defensive backs were.
Yep.
That's playoff football. They're going to be a lot less lenient or more
less nitpicky
on the holding penalties down the field, and whether that's right or wrong, right? Like, what if it's okay to let some of the stuff go in the playoffs, even though the NFL would never admit it? Why don't we just let it go in the regular season? Why do we make it the ref show?
Yeah.
But this should be a lot of game. And, we talk about the top of the show. Again, thoughts and prayers to all the people affected by the fires out in California. But what if this game gets moved? That's another thing that the Vikings will have to go out a day later. Do they end up flying out same day? Do they fly to LA and then get moved? Like, when does that all break down too? Hopefully it doesn't, and that's not something we have to worry about, but the logistics are definitely making this game interesting for both teams, but I think it's going to affect the Vikings more because they're the road team.
I agree with that. And then just seeing as that they would have to go then Monday night short rest to either Philly or Detroit, I think are their only 2 options, I believe. That would just be, it's a tough ask for them coming out of this game if they even get past that. They are favored by a point, but just shows, like, I think this is the smallest. Yeah, it's the smallest spread out of all the games. And part of that might be because of how bad they looked against the Lions last week on Sunday night. The Lions came to play. The Vikings just kind of were just stuck on offense, and their defense didn't have that many answers. And that's weird because their defense has been so good, but now they're facing a team that has not exactly had the powerhouse offense for most of this season, even when they've been healthy. Despite having the weapons like Kupp and Nacua, this is where the Vikings defense might shine again. And this might be one of those low scoring 17-13, 13-10 type games.
It very much could be. And that's the thing. I'm looking very much to how the Vikings respond and how much they make this, do they go out there angry and win by 2 scores? Do they let the Rams hang in? Is it another 1-score game that they just squeak by? Like, I think so much of how they respond to this game will set them up for either success or failure the rest of the postseason.
Yeah, because if they keep the Rams in this game, but then squeak it out, I have a hard time believing that they're going to be able to go to Philly or Detroit and pull out a game next week on short rest. I would have to see a lot more from their offense, honestly, just in general, to not only, I think, win this game, but move on and have any kind of faith from me moving forward.
Yeah, I think that, how I expect them to go would be very interesting to say the least, depending on how this game goes.
Yeah. And how much do you think his performance in this game, being Sam Darnold, affects his contract? Because we saw somebody finally kind of get him in the blender last week. He was getting hit a lot. He missed a lot of wide open touchdown, wide open people in the red zone. And we saw the cracks starting to form. If he has that same exact thing happen this week, if McVay and company can scheme something up to keep him under pressure and he folds, does that affect his contract and his outlook as a potential starting quarterback next season?
I think he's back with the Vikings no matter what.
Okay.
So I don't think he's playing for the rest of the league. I think he's back with the Vikings. And honestly, I think what really maybe if he has a really bad performance in crunch time, maybe it's like a franchise tag thing instead of a long-term contract. But if he wins one game, so I think he has more to gain from winning than losing. That's probably the way to put it. If he wins this game, I think the buzz that they might look into trading Jay McCarthy might be real.
That would be very interesting when you consider how they were looking this, coming into this season. But it's a very good possibility.
So we'll just have to wait and see how it all plays out.
All right. We went through every game in the first round here, trying to hide who we're picking. Do you want to reveal our official playoff brackets?
Sure.
Who's going first?
Go for?
I'll go first. That's fine. Yeah. Let me pull up my bracket here.
Share his screen. There's a great website called myplayoffpicks.com. They are not a sponsor, but it just makes it really easy to go through. It does the reseeding always. You just basically the screen is one team that split down the middle. One side's one and the other side's the other. You keep picking till you get a Super Bowl champ.
Yes, and I was struggling between two different brackets. I'm going with my gut.
Show them both.
Here.
I
only have one of them saved.
Okay.
All right. Here we are. So my picks for this week, I've got Bills over Broncos, Ravens over Steelers, Chargers over Texans, Eagles over Packers, Commanders over Bucks. That's my one upset. And then I have Vikings over Rams.
So that's your one.
My one upset is Commanders over Buccaneers.
Okay. That is worth noting because I don't know if I have any upsets on mine. So I should probably fix that.
Divisional round, then we have Chiefs and Chargers. I'm going with Chiefs. And Bills, Ravens. I have Ravens. NFC side is Lions, Commanders, and I have Lions. Eagles, Vikings, and I have the Eagles. I then make it Ravens, Lions in the big game with the Ravens as my champion.
Okay.
Now, fun thing I saw going around social media this week, the Ravens have a tendency to win a Super Bowl every 12 years with a 28-year-old starting quarterback. This is year 12 since they won a Super Bowl, and Lamar Jackson is 28 years old.
Oh, so you're playing the odd system.
I am.
Worth noting there. How much of your prediction was just not wanting to see the Chiefs in it?
I was just trying to think back to that week 1 game where I think the Chiefs actually looked decent in week 1. And then they obviously struggled for a while and they have been bringing it together. And obviously we have Mahomes, ankle, but I feel like there's two teams that have a chance against the Chiefs. One's the Bills, one's the Ravens. They obviously, I think, are going to have to play each other to get through. And I think if there is a team that is going to beat the Chiefs. With how they've been playing lately, the Ravens are the ones that are set up to do it. Because Lamar Jackson, if you get him hot in the middle of a game, I think he's the one that has the I can duel with Patrick Mahomes right now. Josh Allen has had a couple of shots at it, and he hasn't been able to do it in the playoffs, much of what you've been saying lately, Cody.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting point to see how it all shakes out. But do you want me to share mine?
Yes, let me take mine down.
All right, so I will share mine now. And just for what it's worth, I have 4 brackets. I'm going to go through them quick.
Okay.
Just because I want the first one is I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it?
Zoom in a little bit if you can.
All right, this is my dream
better
scenario. I know it was hard to see on the social, or online even for yours. So I will just read it through. So this is my dream scenario. So basically, it's the Packers beat the Eagles, the Buccaneers Commanders win. I picked the Buccaneers in that one. Vikings beat the Rams. On the AFC side, Bills beat the Broncos. Ravens beat the Steelers. Next round, Bills beat the Ravens. I can't even see my own thing because I zoomed it in too far. Give me a second. I can talk you through it. The Chiefs beat the Chargers. Packers beat the Lions. Vikings beat the Bucks. Packers beat the Vikings. Packers versus Chiefs in the Super Bowl. Packers beat the Chiefs. If we could exercise all them demons and then stop the Chiefs from the three-peat, that would be my dream scenario. Do I think it's going to happen? No, I do not. But I had to throw it in there because that is just me being super wishful thinking. All right, I won't do all 4. That just takes too much time. I had like the thing I absolutely want the least to happen, and that would be a Lions-Steelers Super Bowl with the Lions winning. That would be the worst case scenario for me. So I'm actually torn between 2 brackets as well. And it's hard for me to pick which one I want to go with, but I think I'm going to go with this one. Okay. This is tough. I'm tilting already of which one and I'm just picking a bracket. Like I don't get anything right. Why am I so stressed out about this one? But I am going to go with my official bracket. And I cannot stand that I'm picking this team to win. I hope they get bounced their first game. But if you're not watching on YouTube, I have in round 1 the Bills beating the Chargers. I'm sorry, the Bills beating the Broncos. Then the Ravens beating the Steelers. No upsets there. I have the Eagles beating the Packers, unfortunately. And then I have the Buccaneers beating the Commanders. And I have the Rams beating, or I have the Vikings beating the Rams. And I think I skipped the Chargers and the Texans. I have the Chargers beating the Texans. So
you're actually going chalk this week.
I'm going chalk.
Okay.
I know that doesn't play well to the 1.5 per year, but I'm going chalk this week in terms of underdogs versus regular. Then I would say Chiefs, Chargers. That game, I got the Chiefs winning. Bills, Ravens. In that game, I have the Bills winning. I think Josh Allen gets it done. Then I think the Lions-Vikings game, the Lions beat the Vikings twice in 3 weeks. Eagles beat the Buccaneers. And the other bracket, I have the Eagles winning, but in this one, my official one, I have the Lions winning. And then I have the Chiefs beating the Bills again, but the Lions prevent them from a three-peat and go on to win the Super Bowl, which is, I might never watch football again. I don't want to talk about the Lions. So that is where I'm at with this team. But, some people will think it's great that a non-Super Bowl winning team won it for the first time. But we'll see what happens. If they can overcome the injuries, shout out to them. No matter what, I will say this. This is my bold take, bold prediction. I don't know if it's spicy or not. The winner of the Packers-Eagles game will be a representative in the NFC Championship game.
I definitely could see
It's
that. It would be a lot tougher for the Packers because they would have to go to Detroit. But playing a team 3 times and beating them all 3 is one of the toughest things to do in football. So, that gives the Packers a little bit more of an edge than they would have in those previous 2 games.
yeah. And if they're coming off a big win, can they ride that momentum to a team that's been on a bye? So again, for the Eagles, they're the number 2 seed. It sounds like chalk is them getting there. The Packers side makes it a little bit spicy, but that is my bold-ist prediction for this playoffs.
As much as I don't want to see it happen, if the Packers do win this week, to see them go through Philly, Detroit, and Minnesota in one playoff, especially with how this year has fallen, would be one of the more entertaining things that I have seen in sports lately.
Dude, just let them beat the Chiefs too. Stop the three-peat.
Yeah.
Like, why end there? Like, let's go. Like, that's what people want. Green Bay's America's team, and they want America to succeed. The Cinderella story of overcoming adversity, getting up when you get knocked down. Hang on, I gotta start writing this down for my my hype video for Cheesehead TV.
Why don't you just like cut this and put it in there?
Maybe we'll have to see.
See, there we go. I like it. Get that publicity out there.
Alrighty, but that is do you have any hot takes or anything special?
No, I don't see anything absolutely crazy happen as long as you don't consider the Ravens winning it all being that crazy, which I don't think you do. It's just the Chiefs looming there is the biggest thing in the AFC.
All right, now that what would be the scenario for, I guess the scenario that would be fun because they can't play in the Super Bowl would be a Chargers Ravens AFC Championship game, Harbaugh Bowl. I think that would be fun. Just like an oddity that would be cool to see.
That would be. The only other thing that I know that you were hoping for personally is to have both of those LA teams hosting a conference championship game, which would be super unlikely. Because you don't know what they would do with scheduling.
Yeah. And what we're referring to is if the Chargers and the Rams both make the AFC Championship game where they're the home team. So the Chargers would have to, either be against the Steelers or the Broncos in that situation. So let's just say the Broncos, because maybe they go on a Cinderella story run. And then the Commanders would have to play, not the Commanders.
The Rams have to play either the Commanders or the Packers.
Right. So let's say the Packers for fun for me. How does that work out? Both games are scheduled for Sunday. Do they play both games on Sunday? Maybe spread the gap out a little bit so they can cycle in the new fans. Is it a 2-game, 1 admission ticket that would be through the roof? Do they paint 1 end zone Chiefs? Chargers, basically Chiefs when they're there. Chargers, 1 end zone Rams, put the NFL logo in the middle and just play the games back to back. Like I don't think it's going to happen this year, but as the Chargers and the Rams stay competitive, it took 50 some years for us to see a home team host the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So it could be another 50 years till we see this happen when there's only 2 teams sharing stadiums. And we know the Jets and the Giants ain't ever going to be there in the same year. So it's going to have to be the Chargers and the Rams. But hopefully that happens in the near future because I would just love to see how that all pans out.
I would love to see the scramble that goes on to be like, but if this happens, there was already a little bit of a scramble, if I remember correctly, back when the Vikings potentially were going to host the NFC Championship game back in 2017, and then we're hosting the Super Bowl there. And they had to figure out, like, is there enough stadium turnaround? And then, it's happened since then. Obviously, I think the Rams hosted and then hosted the Super Bowl, but it makes it tight for turnaround. I can't imagine trying to turn it around for games supposed to be on the same day. I would think they would have to be back-to-back days.
I mean, we've seen MetLife have the Giants Sunday, Jets Monday.
Yeah.
We've seen same thing.
We've seen SoFi do the same thing. Exactly.
So that would be something worth watching. But George, it is 7:30.
Yes, it is.
We live in Pennsylvania. It is college football playoff time. I think that means it's time to wrap up the show so we can start enjoying 5 days of meaningful football. I did not mean to add that to the stage, so sorry for that. I'm looking for my buttons as I'm trying to get us to the games. 5 days of football. Enjoy it. Take it all in. The actual season will be over before you know it. But don't worry. We're not going anywhere. We are going to be live. All about the football season, getting you ready for that. Betting insights, whatever you got. Make sure you're in the chat, dropping questions. And if you have a question after you're listening to the show or want to clarify something, follow us on social media and hit us up in the DMs at the Couch Jams on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, all those good places. Thanks for checking out this episode of the Couch Jams podcast. I'm Cody Roadcap. That's George Kurth. We'll talk to you on Monday, and go Pack Go.